All right, welcome to Cultural Entropy. This is going to be a book review of Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. I have to start off by saying that, like, ideologically, I would tend to be biased towards the subject matter of this book. However, I do have a lot to say that's critical of it. So, from a summary perspective, this is kind of a seminal book on like Ayn Rand's objectivism and libertarianism. Um, the basic premise is that the world is decaying into some type of collectivism, i.e., capitalism, whatever you want to say, where the world and the United States are no longer guaranteeing property rights or certain other, you uh, amendments to the Constitution. And in this world, the movers and the shakers, the top 10%, are slowly but surely opting out of interacting with everybody else and allowing the accelerationism of the decay to let the world go where it's going if they're not going to allow the top percent to reap the benefits of their labor. And in this case, it's heavily based off of money being the benefit of what they get. And again, I would tend to have more to say ideologically about this if this was not supposed to be more of a culture channel and not necessarily like just politics and philosophy. So anyway, based off of that, like my first critique of this is it's needlessly long. It is nearly 1100 pages long, and I think I googled it beforehand. It's like got a word count of 500,000 words. So even with those 1100 pages, it's very tightly spaced, and it is also very small font. So they're really cramming it in there. Basic word count for a novel is going to be somewhere between like 90 and 120. And again, this is like basically five times the average novel length. Again, one of the biggest critiques I would have about the book is that, like, this is what happens when you put theme before substance. The main character of the book, Dagny Taggart, probably very much a self-insert for good old Ayn Rand. And she's a little bit of a sex freak in the book. I was really surprised at how much sex there is in this book that was published in 1957. And in general, based off the themes, I'm really surprised at the sex. There is a little bit to be said about the premise of this being somewhat lampooned in the video game BioShock. And I could definitely see both why it should be critiqued and lampooned a little bit. Let's see other things that I have in my notes. The characters are pretty thin. They kind of lack the internal conflict that I would like to see in characters. There is external conflict. There just isn't the internal conflict for most of the characters when it comes to being more than like just two-dimensional cutouts for where the story needs to go overall. And again, as much as I would empathize with the ideological propaganda of it, I have to be critical of, if you're not going to back it up with just giving me the story, that the meat of the story where you have fleshed out characters doing the things and having consequences to their actions and really getting in conflict. I was becoming very aware at a certain point that there were just no children in the story. I think there is a small section of the story where there is a child referenced, and that was just very glaring overall, um, concerning some of the subject matter. And then one of my biggest overall critiques is, besides it, I mean, it's just too long. I was really running out of gas. I was reading about a chapter a day. It took me about a month to read. The ending, the last two chapters are just absolutely absurd. Spoiler warning for those of you who care about that type of stuff. If not, sorry for parting. You have basically the top 1% or whoever the movers of and the shakers of the world that get silenced pistols and go storm a warehouse containing a very important character, and they're shooting silence pistols at people, and just like these are business tycoons being James Bond. At that point I was just like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done. And again, this is from a book that started off very well. I mean, there is some mystery to it. It would have worked better as like a mystery novel and kind of you know devolves. There's a chapter that's like 60 pages long, and it's a I believe I was reading the Reddit on it. It's a 3-hour speech that a character gives over the radio, and it's just like, hey, there's some nice points that I thought about, but like it's not a novel. And that would be my biggest critique of it is again, like if you are interested, there's actually the advertisement for Ayn Rand and objectivism in the book. If you're into that type of thing, like I don't know if you need to spend you know an hour or two a day for a month reading Atlas Shrugs, even though the core central concept of your best and your brightest, those people that have charisma and drive towards innovation, um, slowly but surely being ostracized from society and no longer deciding to interact, and how the decay, and even though I don't think the word communism is actually in the book, or maybe Marxism is, overall that decay that would occur if people no longer have the incentive to actually engage, and the moral decline, and overall like the trust and the contractual nature of humanity, that's really important. And so at a certain point, like I'd say like 300 or 400 pages in, I was like, hey, this probably should be read in a high school setting. you know uh you know Teenagers should probably have to or be compelled to read this book to think about some of the concepts behind it. I think having them read the book, and then bringing in the alternative argument and allowing them to think about the two sides would be a very good. And then the next 600 pages hit, and I was like, nope, I can definitely see why all the critique that is lobbed on this is definitely warranted by the end. So yeah, overall, like I would say, like if you're interested, pick up the Cliff Notes. If you're interested in what not to do with your ideology, this is another good one to read. I don't know how many people are going to have it in them to finish the 1100 page book. Like I said, the last few chapters of it, like I was checked out, and I really had to push myself through, and that was after at certain points like really liking the book. There isn't a good scene early in the book. It involves whether or not a train will work, and I thought it was a really good example of how to write a scene, because all the potential outcomes of the scene would allow the story to continue forward. Whether or not they were successful or it failed, the story could still continue. That is very good writing. When there's only one outcome for the story to continue, it lacks tension. That's bad writing. So in a novel that I was like, well, I don't know why it gets the bad rap. This has good writing in it. Then I get to other points in the story, and I'm being distracted by sex. I'm being distracted by preaching propaganda, that not good stuff, and then starting to no longer care about the characters because they're so thin and one dimensional. Again, not good stuff. And this is basically off of someone that like agrees with the ideology of the novel to a heavy extent. So anyway, that is my review of Atlas Shrugs, and yeah,